Alright, selecting at random here from my now sort of downsized PlayStation 1 collection is Batman and Robin. When I was a little kid, this was my favorite movie, which should come as no surprise because it's the only live-action Batman movie with an all-star cast that was exclusively geared towards such a young audience. It was, in every sense of the word, a live-action cartoon. Some people think of the Dark Knight trilogy as being the string of films that matured Batman, but the first two Batman movies were dark and edgy with adult themes. It was Batman Forever that lightened the edge slightly, and Batman and Robin's silly-ass tonality that causes us to forget Batman was always intended to be a little more hardcore in cinema, and the Dark Knight trilogy is not the first time Batman was handled seriously in film. The odd thing about Batman and Robin is it's no lack of judgment and it's no mistake. It's an intentional kid-friendly Batman movie. It's so silly and so hard to take serious, yet at the same time, you have the likes of Uma Thurman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and George Clooney, who I think was a great casting decision. He's a great voice for Batman and the more sophisticated Bruce Wayne. I thought the kid they casted as Robin fit the bill nicely, so casting-wise, had this film taken a more serious approach, it would have been pretty badass. There were so many toys, coloring books, action figures, and all kinds of shit marketed off this movie. At the time, it felt like this movie's only purpose was to push these other products, and along with that, we have the PlayStation 1 game. Video games that are only made to capitalize on the success of a film, especially one like this, are usually disappointing. Again, this was my favorite movie when I was a kid, so I had to have the game to go with the movie. But once I get past the fact that this is a game that looks like the movie I enjoy so much, will I get an experience equal to the film? And to be clear, nobody said Batman and Robin isn't awesome when you're 7 years old. What I can say is Batman games are usually at least visually appealing, even if the gameplay isn't much to brag about. So of course for PlayStation 1 standards, this game does a great job of depicting the film, does its best to stay in sequence with the scene order, and actually allows you to play through scenes in the movie as levels in the game, which is what you'd hope to be able to do with any movie-based game. Now, I've picked up this game many times throughout the years and almost always turned it off immediately for one main reason. It's too fucking dark. You start in the Batcave, which is supposed to be dark, I'm aware, but not so dark that I can't see where the fuck I'm going. And you might be thinking, well, it doesn't look too dark to me. Well, oddly, the way the game streams over to a computer, I guess displays it as visually intended to be, but on any television I've ever played it on, it appears like this. Go figure. Then I encounter another issue. I have to just film my television to show you because, again, it doesn't transfer over to the computer gameplay. Upon starting the game, I'm told I have to check my email on the Bat computer or whatever the fuck, and the game instructs me to press this button to do it. What is this symbol? That's not a button on my PlayStation controller, so I fuck around with every button for like 20 minutes until I discover this is X. That's X? Okay. So you discover you have the option to switch between Batman, Robin, and later on in the game, Batgirl. The Bat computer shows you that this is an open world game and you can dip out to various locations on the map of Gotham displayed here. So that's dope. You hit the road and find that the driving controls are a little wonky, which sucks, and in taking on your first few opponents, you find that the fight mechanics are a little delayed. Everything here looks great for PlayStation 1 graphics, so you want to become immersed in it, but shit like this sucks you out of the playing experience step by step. It's a really difficult game with no continues, so when you fuck up, you get sent back to the beginning. But in the way it depicts the film, everything you'd want is here, so it's a shame the difficulty, mainly due to its own ill functionality, wasn't improved a bit, especially being a game that's supposed to be for little kids, just like the movie, the coloring books, the action figures, and the toys. It's certainly creepier than the movie. Mr. Freeze's goons are just henchmen in snow gear, but in the game, they're like snow monsters. Other reviewers call this the worst Batman game ever. I don't really know that that's true. Really, out of all of them, this is the one that takes the cake for the worst Batman game ever? It's fidgety, it's difficult, and I would say a little darker than the film it represents. But that's cool. It has a lot of cool stylistic qualities, and if you really put your mind to it on some crazy hardcore gamer shit, you can make it through. There's just not a lot of incentive to spend too much time on it. My sense of nostalgia has me saying, just make it to the Mr. Freeze boss fight. I gotta at least fight Mr. Freeze. So your affection for this one might depend on your nostalgia for the film, because it's certainly the worst Batman film, and gamers of today have a much more sophisticated plethora of options when it comes to Batman games. Maybe on top of all of this, had this game been a standard platformer, it might have kicked ass, but there's entirely too much going on to investigate. You have to find clues around the city and calculate each move throughout every level as both Batman the detective and Batman the combat-driven hero. And I'm not saying I wish it was just a standard beat-em-up, but stop slowing me down by making me pick up clues and access computers for data as we move through the levels. I'm digging the vibe, just let me knock out enemies and hop platforms. This game overcomplicates itself, and I actually think this clashes with the narrative of the film, because now I go from feeling nostalgic to feeling like, Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy didn't even have such a complex plan of attack that I need to be doing all this goddamn detective work in the first place. Overall, it's not the most horrible game you've ever played, but it's a complex nostalgia killer. I do think it's a worthy effort, but at the end of the day, I'm only playing this to feel like a kid again. When this movie was out, PlayStation was out, and I played a lot of PlayStation, but trying to nostalgically fuse the two ends in a failed result. And I guess that's how most people felt about this one. Still, I'd love to eventually play every Batman game there is, at least to see how they vary, especially the old ones. And this one is not a game I regret giving my time to, but not one that made for any gaming memories either, and the replay value is shot.